There we are. Hi,
Hare
everybody.
Krishna.
Haribo.
Haribol.
Hello, Pranashish Sevarupa Devi Dasi from South Africa. And Gita talks herself. Brother Sundari. Good morning and welcome.
Good
Thank
morning.
you for joining us. It's good
Good
to see
morning.
you. How's this? Are those your sound effects or mine? I think.
It is your. I think it is your sound because before we had.
Yeah, I'm hearing like a or something like that. But anyways, how are you, Pranashish? It's good to see you. I've been offline for about 10 days because my wife loves children and she was visiting her not grandchildren, but sons and daughters of nieces and nephews, like that, in a city out, I say city, but out in the country here in Mexico. And it's been a little hectic. I was taking care of a 6-year-old boy and 6-year-old girl and a boy about a year and a half old. And the boy's learning to use his hands, which is very clever. And he knows how to use his feet. So the question is, how can you run around and grab things and put them in your mouth? It's kind of like Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes different levels of consciousness, like anamoya, pranamoya, manomoya, and where anamoya is food consciousness, it means you're just running around and putting things in your mouth and trying to figure it all out. But he's a cute kid. There's some sort of a background sound that's going.
Yes, and I think that this sound is from your place because before you connected, we had no such problems.
Okay. Really?
Yes. Now it's better.
1, 2.
Yes.
A little better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I have 2 microphones and I just turned one off.
Okay.
I don't think it's me,
Try.
but you say that started when I connected. I'm going to disconnect and come back.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe that'll solve the problem.
Okay. Okay. Let's try.
Top video mute. Oh, here we go. I'm going to leave the meeting.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. We will start soon. It's nice to see you. I hope.
Dandavats from Kolkata.
Oh, Paklone, yes, Dandavats. Prithu Prabhu, are you still Prithu Prabhu or you have a new name already?
Not going to.
So simply, I saw a photo by Avadut Maharaj, and it was written that we are saying goodbye to Prithu Prabhu. That's why I had such a thought. Yes.
It was his joke.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, now it's better. Now it's better.
Okay. Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте.
1, 2, testing. 1, 2. And we're connecting with Prithu Das and Petersburg. Okay, now that sound came back.
It's the night here in Kolkata, Maharaj.
So it is not. So
that's not me, it's you. Okay. All right, I'll try and make do. Okay, there's Prithu Das in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Maharaj in Kolkata.
What time is it there?
In Kolkata.
Maharaj, in Kolkata now,
Kolkata.
8 p.m.
Oh,
yeah.
Haribo, you look like you lost some weight.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to get started here and just sort of give my talk as it is. And I'm going to turn down my sound so I don't hear that a little bit. Just turn that down. Okay. Okay. Hang on. Got it. Meeting is being live streamed. All right. So we're reading from the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the hidden treasure of the sweet absolute, translated by Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And I've often wondered why do we call this the chatursloka? Why is that so important? Well, I'm here to make an argument for the Bhagavad Gita and for reading the Bhagavad Gita and for considering it one of the great books. And Bhagavad Gita gets a lot of opposition, especially in the West, because it's considered somehow not really that worthy of discussion. People prefer to talk about the teachings of the Buddha. If they go outside Catholicism or the Christian take on reality. But I'm here to defend the Bhagavad Gita. So the chatursloka, it's very important. If you're a Hare Krishna devotee, if you're initiated in the tradition of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and you've been exposed to the teachings of Rupa Goswami, you may find that the sort of message given in the Bhagavad Gita, since it focuses more on Atma Gyan, it may be a little bit external to the message of Srila Rupa Goswami, because if you've heard Anyabhilashita Shunyam Gana Karmadyanavritam, that the highest form of surrender means it's free from Gyan and free from karma, then what we're finding in the Bhagavad Gita may seem a bit external. So the commentaries of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and also especially Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Baladev Vidibhushan, are meant to remedy this. So here in the 10th chapter, we come to the chatursloka, these 4 verses that are very powerful. And what we find is they have both an internal message and an external message. So Krishna is speaking internally to Arjuna in a special kind of language that may not be understood by everyone, whereas the ordinary meaning of his words is very clear. So in this sense, you could say that the nectar of Krishna's words in the Bhagavad Gita might be compared to a kind of a tonic or a medicine. Now, we know that often the same medicine has more than one use. Arsenic, for example, can be used as rat poison or heart medicine. So scriptural advice may have an external and internal meaning. And this morning, we'll take a look at the last of the 4 nutshell verses in the Bhagavad Gita and try to move on and finish talking about the different vibhutis. So this morning, we'll look at how outer and inner meanings come into play and how each of those are useful. So Krishna is speaking internally to Arjuna in this special language that may not be understood by everyone, whereas the ordinary meaning of his words is very clear. And one thing I wanted to mention as part of my apology for the Bhagavad Gita, if you like, is its place in world literature. Western civilization prides itself on its great culture. The German philosopher Hegel felt that the history of civilization is one of inevitable progress. He wrote that the progress of humanity culminates in Western civilization itself. And in modern times, there's a big professor of economics, Francis Fukuyama, and he wrote a book called The End of History, because he feels that modern democracy has already demonstrated the best in human evolution. But that book was written back in the 80s, and now contemporary scholars have taken issue with this. His point was that if everything is progressive, and if human society progresses from one idea to the next, from barbarism to feudalism to capitalism to modern day democracy, we've already achieved that, and our modern democracy is the best. But contemporary scholars have taken issue with this. They point out that around the world, barbarism is on the rise. Democracy has not fulfilled its true promise. As Srila Prabhupada used to say, democracy has become demon crazy, because if you let majority rule, then sometimes the mob has strange and violent ideas about how to conduct human society, and democracy doesn't work out the way we want it to. But the proponents of Western civilization, they'll refute this by looking at the greatest achievements in culture. And they'll say that here we've defeated barbarism. And among these achievements, they point to literature, poetry, great music, and art. And they point out that the great achievements in culture stake a claim to transcendence. In a sense, art replaces religion. Homer, Dante, Shakespeare, and at the beginning of the modern age, there was Richard Wagner and his transformative theater. His all-absorbing operatic wonders, such as the Rheingold, Valkyrie, or the Death of the Gods and his Götterdämmerung, the destruction of the worlds. Now, of course, there's a kind of cultural war going on where the culture of ignorance tries to defeat any sort of high culture. And Homer, Dante, Shakespeare, Wagner, they've fallen out of favor. But the modern attempts at replacing these are big Hollywood blockbuster movies with superheroes and so on. Well, if you look at the superheroes, they're based on the idea of Nietzsche's Superman, and ultimately it goes back to myth and mythology. Wagner, he tried to create a modern myth that went back to ancient Germanic traditions, but none of these can really touch the transformative power of the Mahabharata. So Hegel and his followers in the modern world dismissed such great works as the Mahabharata as a kind of impossible mess of barbaric and tribal superstition. But of course, none of them had been initiated into the secrets of that great esoteric tradition. In fact, if you took all the scenes of the Mahabharata and you turned them into a massive opera or or movie along the lines of Wagner's Ring Cycle, it wouldn't take 4 days and 4 nights to perform. It would take years. There was an attempt made by a Hollywood dramatist, Peter Brook, to produce the Mahabharata as a play, and later made it into a movie. And it ran about 9 hours without touching on the history of the Pandavas, who was Bhishma, or the esoteric mysteries and spiritual truths at the heart of the Mahabharata. In other words, ignoring all the spiritual wisdom, all the side stories. Attempts have been made at producing or representing the Mahabharata that go into hours and hours and hours, but they don't touch on its greatness. And so for this reason, the Mahabharata is sometimes accused of inconsistency, but it's no more inconsistent than life itself. As a great symphonic poem of 100,000 verses, it's fully consistent with the idea represented here in the 10th chapter of the Gita. So if you take the Mahabharata as this big symphony of ideas that goes on for years, the 10th chapter of the Gita condenses the meaning of that into a kind of very intimate sonata played between Krishna and Arjuna in their conversation. So the 10th chapter of the Gita, then, it's at the heart of the Mahabharata, and it's the heart of the Gita. And here we find very profound teachings reduced to very simple ideas. So the most profound of these motifs is the idea of surrender, found in the 4 verses under discussion. So we're looking at this verse in particular. Tesham evanukam partam ahamagyana jam tamaha nashyami atmabhavasto gyana deepena bashvata. Says, out of compassion for them, I, situated within the heart of all living beings, dispel the darkness of ignorance with the radiance of knowledge. So, of course, this is the general meaning, but the general meaning here is, we say it's external or it's outer because there's a higher, deeper meaning. But this meaning itself is enough. This is like when Christ says, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be opened. Krishna is saying, if you fall, I will catch you, which is one of the 6 principles of Sharanagati. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjana rakshishyatiti vishvasyo goptrite bharanam tata atmanikshepa karpanye shadvida Sharanagati. It's a different 6-fold path of surrender. Among those, one of those is Rakshishyatati Vishvaso, means to accept the protection of the Lord. And the other one is Goptrite Bharanam Tata, only Krishna maintains me. But the idea is that you can throw yourself into the infinite. You can give everything to God. Now, this is, as I said, it's a general meaning. So any religion, be it Quran, Islam, or the Bible, Christianity, or Judaism, the idea that you can give everything to God and that God will protect you. It's a very profound and powerful idea, which has a universal message. Krishna is saying, and he'll repeat this later when he says Sarvadharma Parityaja, he's saying Ma Shucha, don't worry, I'm here. I'll catch you if you fall. I'll protect you. So, for example, in the Bible, there's the story of Job, where Job is tortured. There's a kind of a bet between Satan and God, where Satan says, well, your follower, your devotee, as long as he has his wife and his family and his land, he's faithful to you. But what if you take that away? Will he still have faith? And so God lets Satan test Job, and he loses his cattle, his stock, his servants, his children, and then his body is covered with sores and boils. And he's provoked by his friends, renounce God. But Job says, no, I'm not going to do that. I still have faith. It doesn't matter how fallen my condition is. It doesn't matter how difficult my condition is. And then they ask him, but if God is kind, why does he allow you to suffer? How can you allow yourself to be put into the position of suffering and suffering by believing in some God? What kind of a God would allow that? And Job says, well, we can't always understand what the divine plan is. God is great, and we cannot understand his greatness, because if we could understand his greatness, we would be another infinite. So some people think that the idea of religion is to go to heaven, or the idea of following Krishna is to get liberation. But Sharanagati is not a means towards an end. Sharanagati is the end. And Krishna is saying here that whatever adversity that you experience on the basis of ignorance or darkness, that will be illuminated with knowledge. So the sort of key point here is Krishna is talking about tama. Yeah, he says aham agyana jam tamaha. Says that tama, which is born of agyan. So this is interesting. Tama means ignorance, and agyan means lack of knowledge. Like in English, the word no is spelled with a K. So a lot of people think it should be pronounced no, but that's like gnosis, which is Greek, and gyan, which is the Sanskrit. Ignorance. So in a sense, everything that we suffer is a consequence of our ignorance, our separation from God. It's not that God puts us in the position of suffering because he wants to dangle us like spiders over a fire. But suffering itself often brings us to enlightenment. And this is pointed out by Queen Kunti, who is the mother of the Pandavas. She's also the aunt of Krishna himself, being the sister of Krishna's father Vasudeva. So when the Battle of Kurukshetra concludes, and all these different kings and princes who have gathered to fight for the kingdom of Hastinapur, they're all lying dead on the battlefield. Krishna is leaving for Dwarka, and Kunti comes to him to say goodbye, and she says, Vipada Shantata Shashpad Tattva Tattva Jagat Guru. Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru. Bhavato Darshanam Yat Syad Apunar Bhavadarshanam. She says, I wish that all these calamities would happen again and again so that we could see you again, because seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated birth and death. Apunar Bhavadarshanam. So Kunti is saying that every wave is favorable. If something terrible happens, it draws us towards a memory of God, a memory of Krishna. So there's no atheists in the foxholes. When terrible things happen, we tend to remember Krishna. We take shelter of God in adversity when calamities come. So one of our problems is in the mode of goodness. If you live a life in the mode of goodness, you're relatively happy. But the goal of life is not to be relatively happy. The goal of life is to develop divine love of God. And so your the relativity of happiness makes you forget the real miracle of spiritual reality. And when we're faced with calamities, when everything is taken away, then suddenly we begin to value our life again. We value our spiritual reality. We value the personality of Godhead and our connection. So Krishna says, out of compassion for them, I, situated in the hearts of all living beings, dispel the darkness of ignorance with the radiance of knowledge. So he's saying, if you take shelter of him, then your suffering, which is born of ignorance, will be dispelled by the light of knowledge. And that means the suffering that we experience in the material world, the threefold miseries, birth, death, old age, and disease, all these things are external. Trying to figure out how to ameliorate my suffering in this world, because my feet hurt, my back hurts, I have a headache, I'm tired, my children need money and education, there's bombs falling on the city. All these different problems may have a relative solution in the relative world, but sooner or later we have to confront the problem of death and how to leave this relative world. And Krishna is saying that sort of ignorance will be dispelled with the radiance of knowledge. So we say, Agyana Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya. Guru Dev dispels our ignorance. He brings the radiance of knowledge. And so this is sort of the external idea, or the general meaning. It's popular to say external as if this is unimportant, but Krishna is giving comfort here. And the kind of comfort that he's giving is, in some different religious traditions, the highest sort of comfort that you might get. But there's a higher meaning, or an internal meaning. And that is, Krishna says, being conquered by the love of those devotees who in their unalloyed loving devotion become afflicted by the all-devouring darkness born of their pangs of separation from me, I illuminate their hearts with my presence, destroying the darkness of their pain of separation. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj points out, Krishna has already discussed the idea of Jnana Shunya Bhakti. He's already talked about devotion without any calculation for personal gain or knowledge. So why would he revisit the theme? Why would he come back and talk about ignorance? He's described all these different forms of yoga, from jagya, sacrifice, to karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, karma mishra bhakti, jnana mishra bhakti. And now he's already spoken about the highest forms of bhakti. Why would he mention tamaha again? Why would he talk about ignorance and darkness? Well, even devotees suffer from a kind of misery, a kind of darkness, but their darkness is born of separation from Krishna. So this is a deeper meaning. Srila Sridhar Maharaj comments, when those high devotees are already admitted to be performing continuous and adulterated service, and even above that, they're situated in the plane of pure love, spontaneous and automatic, raga marg. How can it be harmonized that the Lord will now, in the last stage, destroy their ignorance born of misunderstanding? So Sridhar Maharaj is saying, well, why would Krishna say this? We're already talking about the highest devotees. We discussed that last week. We were talking about Sri Radha and the gopis. So what kind of ignorance could they possibly have what kind of knowledge could he possibly be talking about? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, well, knowledge is a cover, a finite conception of the infinite absolute. Why would he talk about that? How will they again have to return to that knowledge? So Sridhar Maharaj points to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he says, well, this is extraordinary knowledge. And Sridhar Maharaj says, well, Chakravarti Thakur, he doesn't really comment on this. So if you look at the book that was published by the Mat, and you look at Srila Prabhupada's Gita, you'll notice that Prabhupada's Gita is very thick because there's so much esoteric knowledge there. He's commenting on everything. Whereas Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he's taking it for granted that if you're born in India and you know all about karma and jnana and all these things, it's not necessary to really comment every single verse in the book. So you'll see that Srila Sridhar Maharaj's comment is actually a little sparse. He doesn't get into detail about every verse in the Gita. But here in the chatursloka, he does. And he says, well, Chakravarti Thakur, he mentioned this, but he doesn't go into detail. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, to clarify this point, we've given the following explanation. He says, lamentation, if you analyze psychology, it says lamentation and delusion are generally known to be symptoms of the mode of ignorance. Okay, so the gopis, they're not victims of the mode of ignorance. In Jnana-shunya Bhakti, the elevated devotees who take Krishna not as the supreme God, but as a friend, son, husband, or lover, will come to experience lamentation and delusion. But this is only an outward appearance of ignorance. So the tama, or agyan, that's being described in this verse, when it refers to the highest devotees, really means the sort of lamentation and delusion they experience when they're feeling the pains of divine separation from Krishna. They lament, where have you gone? So Krishna leaves Vrindavan, he goes to Mathura, becomes the prince of Dwarka, later the king, and later involves himself in this terrible war, the Battle of Kurukshetra. But in Vrindavan, everyone there is thinking, what happened to Krishna? Where is he? Where has he gone? And they're lamenting. And you can't go to the Mother Yashoda or the gopis and say, well, every wave is favorable, it'll work out. No, they're lamenting Krishna. Who's going to give them any comfort? And then Krishna says, well, actually, I favor them. I will dispel their darkness. Tesham evanukam partam. It also means Srila Sridhar Maharaj wants to go a little deeper. He said, I want their favor. I want them to favor me. They give me their light. So Sridhar Maharaj refers to the Bhagavatam, Mai Bhaktir Bhutanam Amritatvaya Kalpate, Dishtya Ya Ashin Machneho, Bhavatina Madapanahat. He says, in general, people want devotion to me to achieve eternal life. They use bhakti as a means to an end. To cross the limit of mortality and to have eternal life, they come to me and worship me. For these reasons, they want my service. But fortunately for you, O gopis, you have some natural affection towards me. That will ultimately bring you to me. And then he says, but there's a deeper meaning to that verse where Krishna says, but I consider myself fortunate because I have come in touch with the valuable affection that I found in your hearts. By my fortune, I've got your association. So here in the Gita, Krishna is saying, Tesha evanukam partam, being conquered by the love of these devotees, When I cannot tolerate their pain of separation, I at once come running to satisfy them. And I reveal to them with special light, special consciousness, I have returned to you. See me now. With powerful brilliance, Jnana Dipena, I show them my presence when they're very much in need of me, and I reveal I relieve their pain of separation. So this, the last verse in the four nutshell verses of the chatursloka, Krishna's coming out and he's talking about very high things, separation, parakya bhav. And he says, Atma Bhavashta, the word bhav here is important. He says, he reveals himself according to his devotee's divine relationship with him as a friend, as a child, as a husband, or as a paramour. And Srila Sri Ramar's comments, he says, the acme of theism is parakya rasa. So this is a very special thing that's special for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And I was saying before, a lot of people, they don't really like to read the Bhagavad Gita because they don't see where is the rasa here, where is parakya rasa. I want that. So they prefer to read the teachings of Rupa Goswami. But the Bhagavad Gita is a very practical book for daily life. And if you're looking for the highest sort of bhakti, that's contained here. Srila Sri Ramar says, the acme of theism is parakya rasa. Parakya means another's. So in every divine relationship, the Lord captures all. In the whole of Vrindavan, where everyone follows the path of love, this parakya rasa is infused. For example, the friends of Krishna, sometimes they think, well, maybe Krishna's special. Maybe he's going to disappear. He's not really one of us. Some people say that Krishna is a resident of Mathura, that he's the son of Vasudeva and he will go to Mathura. Will we really lose his company? So even the cowherd boys, they also experience separation. So Srila Sri Ramar's comments, the divine arrangement is fashioned in this way to enhance the devotee's inner devotion for the Lord, just as food is more tasteful when hunger is present. So the Christian idea that everyone is floating around in heaven playing on their harp, it's very dull. It's not an inspiring kind of vision. Or from another angle, there's Superman. I never liked Superman when I was a kid because he's invulnerable. Nothing can happen to him. He's perfect. So that's kind of like the Vishnu of Vaikuntha. We want more vulnerability, and then there can be love. Sri Ramesh points out, in Vaikuntha, the nature of the worship of Lord Krishna is gorgeous, majestic, reverential, and awe-inspiring. But above that, in the highest conception, Godhead is human-like in form and nature. So Charitamrita says, the highest form of Godhead is Krishna, who plays in his eternal divine pastimes like a human being, an ever-youthful cowherd boy of Vrindavan, best of dancers. He enjoys his pastimes, always playing his flute. This beauty is so charming and sweet that the whole universe is flooded by even the tiniest atom of it, and all beings are attracted irresistibly to him. So Srila Sri Ramar says, in this way we can appreciate divinity by the development of Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya rasa, and then finally Parakya rasa. So the ignorance that is being described in the verse refers to the idea that even if you're perfect, you feel the pain of separation, that Krishna might disappear. But Krishna says, don't worry, I'll be there. I will enlighten you, and your pain and suffering will disappear. So Srila Sri Ramar says, this is the highest conception, scientifically proven, without whimsical or blind faith. if we follow the line of Rupanuga Bhajan, which originates from Sri Chaitanya Dev, this scientific basis can be appreciated. The previous acharyas have left comprehensive teachings for us on how to follow, conceive, and attain all these things. So going back to Hegel, he had this idea that that reality, in some sense, must be progressive. Well, Srila Sridhar Maharaj is pointing out that a true appreciation of God should be progressive, and it should develop from the idea of God as the Supreme Father to, as taught by Jesus, to something higher as taught by Sri Chaitanya and Srila Rupa Goswami. And you could say that where the Christians 2,000 years ago discovered the fatherhood of Godhead, Rupa Goswami is discovering for you the sonhood of Godhead and the paramarship of Godhead. Why not take advantage of those teachings? And so this is a very powerful message given by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and it's worth thinking about. You may consider that, well, who is Sridhar Maharaj? She's some cult figure in India. But it's not that simple. Srila Sridhar Maharaj was really the ideological standard bearer for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Saraswati Thakur absorbed and taught what he got from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was a great proponent of Vishwanath, Baladev, Rupa Goswami, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is not to be so easily dismissed as some sort of tribal barbarism, as is done in the West, as we explained at the beginning. So Arjuna reacts. In this section of the Gita, it's all Krishna. He's again, if you go back to the symphony, this is a big solo. It's a brilliant part of the Gita, but there's more. So Arjuna says, all right, I accept what you're saying. Okay, I accept your argument. It all makes sense to me. And up until this point, Arjuna is asking all these questions again and again. You might think he's being impertinent, or he doesn't really understand what's being said to him. But in a dialogue, one person plays the part of the questioner who brings out the deeper truths of the teacher. And here that's Arjuna. He's standing in for us, asking these questions. After all, it's Arjuna's tama, his ignorance, that provokes Krishna to speak here. But now the Gita has kind of reached a crescendo, and Arjuna wants more. He wants him to continue and explain a little bit about the opulences of God. He's saying, all right, param brahma, param dhamma, pavitram paramam bhavan, purusham, shashvatam divyam, adi devam, ajam vibhum. Arjuna says, I accept you as the Supreme Personality of Godhead here. I accept all that you've said. You are the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Shelter and Supreme Savior. All the prominent sages, such as Devarshi Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyas, have described you as the self-manifest eternal Supreme Person, the fountainhead of all opulences and the root of all existence, from whose divine play everything emanates. Now you are personally declaring this to be the truth. It's very important that Arjuna intervenes here to say something, because if you or I or someone else comes forward and says, I am the great spaghetti monster, I am the Lord of all I survey, well, obviously that person must be crazy. But this is not any person, this is Krishna. And he's on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in front of thousands of great and important personalities from Dhritarashtra, the king of Hastinapur, Sanjay, who can see what's going on the battlefield, Vyasadeva, who can see by remote vision, and Narada in the heavens. And not only is everyone standing by and allowing Krishna to reassert his divinity, but in the different various Puranas and Vedic literatures, Narada, Asita, Devala, Vyas, they've described Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna is not making this up. And it's good that Arjuna is coming forward to assert Krishna's divinity, saying Param Brahma. Param means supreme. Param Dhamma. You're the supreme abode, the supreme spirit. And he says, all right, Keshava, killer of the Keshi demon, I fully accept all that you've said. In fact, even though you're mentioned in the different scriptures, you're mentioned by the demigods, you're mentioned by the Puranas, but they don't know who you are. O Supreme Person, Universal Father, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe, only you can know yourself by your own divine potency. But tell me, describe to me in full your personal opulences by which you pervade all these worlds. So here Arjuna he's asking the personality of Godhead to describe himself in his own words. And this is unique in the history of the world. Very few times will someone who is being described as the personality of Godhead step forward and claim that position as Bhagavan. Arjuna says, "O Lord of divine potency, how can I be constantly absorbed in thought of you? How can I know you? And in which form should I think of you? O Lord of divine potency, how can I be constantly absorbed in thought of you? How can I know you? And in which forms should I think of you?" Vishtarenat mano yogam vibhutin cha janardana bhuya kataya triptirhi shrinvato nasti memritam. O Janardan, please again describe in detail your opulences and the path of devotion to you, for I never tire of hearing your ambrosial words. So Krishna says, O Arjuna, best of the Kurus, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Hantat te katayishyami divya hyatma vibhutaya, pradhana yata kuru shreshta, nashyanto vishtarasyame. Krishna says, O conqueror of sleep, I am the super soul within the hearts of all beings, and I am their beginning, middle, and end. So I actually translated this as poetry to sort of get a poetic feel for what Krishna is saying. And they say writing is, people like to write because it's a way of speaking without being interrupted. So since no one is interrupting me, I'm going to go ahead and read my poetic translation of the Vibhutis. Krishna says, I am the self. O sleepless one, I dwell in the hearts of all beings. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all things. Of all things, I am the greatest. I am God of gods, King of kings, Lord of lords. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marichi. Of stars, I am the moon. Of the Vedas, I am the Sama. Of the gods, I am thunder-bearing Indra. Of senses, I am the mind. Of living beings, I am the soul. Of Rudras, I am Shiva. Of Yakshas and Rakshasas, I am Kuvera. Of Vasus, I am the god of fire, Agnu. Of the mountains, I am the tallest, Meru. Of priests, I am Brihaspati. Of generals, I am the god of war. Of bodies of water, I am the ocean. Of the great sages, I am Brigu. Of vibrations, I am the transcendental Om. Of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names in Japa. Of immovable things, I am the Himalayas. Of horses, I am Uchaislava, born of the churning of the ocean of immortal nectar. Of the elephants, I am Airavata. Of men, I am the king of kings. Of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Of cows, I am Surabi, giver of abundant milk. Of procreators, I am the god of love, Cupid. Of serpents, I am Vasuki. Of celestial Naga snakes, I am Ananta. Of aquatic beings, I am Varuna, god of water. Of departed ancestors, I am Aryam the ancient. Of justices, I am the god of death, Yama himself. And of the Daityas, I am the devoted Prahlad. Of all conquerors, I am time. Of the beasts, I am the lion. Of birds, I am Garuda, the feathered carrier of Vishnu. Of purifiers, I am the wind. Of wielders of weapons, I am Parashuram. Of kings, I am Rama. Of fish, I am the shark. Of rivers, I am the Ganges. Of creations, I am the beginning, the end, and the middle. Of science, I am the spiritual science. Of debates, I am the thesis, the synthesis, and the antithesis. Of letters, I am alpha. Among syllables, I am the word. I am inexhaustible time. Of creators, I am the four-headed Brahma. I am all-devouring death. I am the generator of all things yet to be. Among women, I am good reputation, fair speech, fine memory, deep intelligence, chastity, and patience. Of hymns, I am the Brihat Sama. Of poetry, I am the Gayatri. Of months, I am November and December. Of seasons, I am flower-bearing spring. Of gamblers, I am the best of cheats. Of the splendid, I am the splendor. I am victory, adventure, and the strength of the strong. Of the Vrishnis, I am Vasudeva. Of the Pandavas, I am Arjun. Of the sages, I am Vyas. Among thinkers, I am Ushana. Of punishments, I am the rod of punishment. Of those who seek victory, I am morality. Of secret things, I am silence. Of the wise, I am wisdom. O mighty conquerors of enemies, there's no end to my divine manifestations. What I've spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. But what need is there, Arjun, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. So there's the 10th chapter of Gita summarized. We say, Iti Sri Mahabharate Shata Sahasriyam Sanghitayam Vayasikam Bhishma Parvani Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Sangvade Vibhuti Yoga Nama Dashamodhyay. Thus ends the 10th chapter, Bhagavan Vibhuti Yoga, the divine glories of the Lord, from the conversation of Sri Krishna and Arjuna and Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad, Yoga, scripture of transcendental knowledge, and Bhishma Parva of Sri Mahabharata, the holy scripture revealed by Srila Vyasadeva in 100,000 verses. So, any questions? Anyways, it's good to see Pranashish's here, Tapanandini, and her excellent, super excellent embroidered design of the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda, is it? Is that Nityananda Prabhu in your embroidery there? And there's Vrindavan Chandra from Odessa. It's good to see you. And Tatiana Schneider, Ananta Shesh in España. Radha Madhavadas. We had Pritu on here for a while from Calcutta. And Sevarupa Devi Dasi from South Africa. There she is Tapanandini. Hello, hello, peace. Yeah, we love your embroidered designs. There's so much heart and soul in that. She has a new one of cenotes, and you can just feel the blueness of the water of the holy cenote deep in the heart of Yucatan. Well, good morning, Tapanandini. It's good to see you. Pranashish there in Ireland. He's wearing 5 jackets and a hat. Did you get the heating fixed over there? Okay. And Vrindavan Chandra somewhere in Odessa. No, we love the hat. That's cool. It's part of the whole profile. It's the Hare Krishna profile, you know. Everybody, I don't know, what do we call those? It's a watch cap, classically speaking. My mommy used to call it a watch cap. So that's for keeping a watch, right? Holding the vigil, keeping it pure. All right, everybody, if there's no questions, I'm going to sign off and say adios. We did our best. I'm sorry it took me so long to get through the 10th chapter, but as you can see, Srila Sridhar Maharaj's commentary, that's where it gets dense. Whereas in the rest of the book, he's just letting Krishna speak for himself. There he intervenes a little bit to say, wait, well, there's a commentary here. Let's pay attention. And once somebody asked Prabhupada, what's your favorite part of the Gita? Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. And he said, I like the part where Krishna says, of this, I am that. It's a very beautiful part to read. So we hope everyone has, we hope all of you have hope and inspiration. We hope that your whatever ignorance, darkness, despair, or adversity you have is dissipated by the torch of knowledge and divine love. And we hope that you all have peace and happiness in your life. I love you very much. God bless you all. We'll see you in 1 week, and we'll have a look at the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. If you like our discussion, subscribe, tell your friends. I should say that more often, but you know what to do. Okay?
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Yeah, go
Jai, Mahayogi Prabhu ki jai.
Okay,
Hare
we'll
Krishna. Yes.
Everybody, ki jai. We'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Dandavats. Bye-bye. So I hope to see you next week at the same time. Надеюсь всех увидеть на следующей неделе в это же время. Примите мои поклоны, please accept my dandavats. Bye-bye. Dandavats.
Dandavats, Didi.
Dandavats. Yes.
When you're advertising, I just wanted to let you know that for South Africa, it's also at 4:30.
4:30 a.m. or p.m.?
p.m.
p.m.
Dandavats
Okay.
to all.
Thank
Best
you.
wishes
Thank
to
you.
all.
Welcome, Dandavats. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, Dandavats. Dandavats to everybody.